Welcome back, everyone. This is the Level 3 Part 2 detective of my new Unsolved Mysteries Iceberg series, where we will cover almost everything from alien civilizations to government mysteries. So, without further ado, I hope you enjoy this series, and of course, thank you for watching. Dardeen homicide. The Dardeen family. Homicides remain one of the most gruesome and perplexing unsolved cases in the history of Illinois. In November 1987, the small community of Ena, Illinois, was shaken to its core when the entire Dardeen family was brutally murdered in their home, leaving behind a trail of horror and mystery that continues to baffle investigators to this day. The Dardeen family consisted of Keith Dardeen, his wife Elaine, their 3-year-old son Peter, and Elaine's unborn child. Keith was a hard-working and responsible man who was known for his caution, especially in light of a recent spate of violent crimes in the area. Despite his vigilance, the family was unable to escape their tragic fate. The sequence of events began when Keith did not show up for his shift at the Rend Lake Water Conservancy District. Concerned, his employer contacted his parents, who then visited the Dardeen home. What they discovered was a scene of unimaginable horror. Elaine and Peter had been beaten to death with a baseball bat, a weapon that belonged to the family. Elaine, who was 7 months pregnant, went into labor due to the attack, and her newborn was also killed. Keith's body was found the following day in a nearby field. He had been shot multiple times, and his genitals were mutilated, suggesting a level of personal animosity or sadism in the attack. His car was found abandoned in Benton, Illinois, with blood stains inside, further complicating the investigation. The brutality of the murders shocked the local community and stymied investigators who were unable to determine a clear motive for the crime. There were no signs of forced entry or robbery, leading police to believe that the perpetrator or perpetrators might have been known to the family or had gained their trust somehow. Several theories have been proposed over the years, but none have led to a definitive answer. Some suggested that Keith might have been involved in something illicit that led to the murders, though there was no evidence to support this. Others believed that a stranger with a violent disposition could have randomly targeted the family. Serial killer Tommy Lynn Sells claimed responsibility for the murders while on death row, but his confession was met with skepticism due to inconsistencies and his history of making dubious claims about other unsolved crimes. The Dardeen family homicides remain unsolved, with the case growing colder as the years pass. The sheer savagery of the attack and the lack of clear motive make it one of the most disturbing and perplexing cases in Illinois' history. The community of Ena continues to remember the Dardeens, hoping that one day the mystery of their deaths will be unraveled and justice will be served. Colonial Parkway homicides. The Colonial Parkway homicides are a series of unsolved murders that took place between 1986 and 1989 along the Colonial Parkway, a scenic route in Virginia that connects historic sites in Williamsburg, Yorktown, and Jamestown. These brutal killings claimed the lives of at least 8 young people, casting a long shadow over the picturesque landscape and leaving investigators with a complex and chilling mystery. The first known victims were Kathleen Thomas and Rebecca Andowski, whose bodies were found in Thomas's car on October 12, 1986. The vehicle had been pushed down an embankment off the Colonial Parkway. Both women had been strangled and their throats slashed so deeply that they were nearly decapitated. There was no evidence of sexual assault, and their valuables were left untouched, leaving authorities baffled about the motive. The second pair of victims, David Knobling and Robin Edwards, were discovered on September 23, 1987, near the Ragged Island Wildlife Refuge in Isle of Wight County, close to the Colonial Parkway. Their bodies were found by the James River, partially clothed, and both had been shot in the head. Knobling's truck was found nearby with the keys still in the ignition, adding to the mystery. A year later, on April 10th, 1988, the third set of victims, Cassandra Haley, and Richard Keith Call disappeared after a date. Call's car was found abandoned at the York River Overlook on the Colonial Parkway. While their bodies have never been found, evidence suggests they met a similar fate as the previous victims. Their disappearance deepened the fear gripping the local community. The final confirmed victims were Anna Maria Phelps and Daniel Lauer, who vanished on September 5th, 1989, while traveling to Virginia Beach. Their skeletal remains were discovered a month later in a wooded area off Interstate 64, not far from the Colonial Parkway. They had been murdered, though the exact cause of death was difficult to determine due to the condition of the remains. Despite extensive investigations by the FBI and local law enforcement, the cases remain unsolved. Various theories have been proposed, including the possibility of a serial killer or multiple killers operating independently. Some have speculated that the murders could be the work of a rogue law enforcement officer, given the victims' locations and the lack of evidence pointing to a clear suspect. The Colonial Parkway homicides have inspired numerous books, documentaries, and podcasts, keeping the cases in the public eye and maintaining pressure on authorities to find the killer or killers. Advances in forensic technology offer a glimmer of hope that new evidence could emerge, potentially providing answers to a mystery that has haunted Virginia for decades. The families of the victims continue to seek justice and closure, hoping that one day the truth will come to light and the person or persons responsible for these horrific crimes will be held accountable. The enduring mystery of the Colonial Parkway homicides serves as a stark reminder of the fragile line between safety and danger, even in the most serene and historic of settings. Sock murders. The sock murders refer to a series of brutal and unsolved killings that took place in Houston, Texas during the early 1990s. The case is named after the unusual calling card left by the killer. The victims were found with their socks either missing or placed in peculiar positions. This disturbing detail has become the most identifiable aspect of the crimes and a haunting reminder of the unresolved nature of these murders. The first known victim was Cheryl Henry, a 22-year-old woman, and her boyfriend Andy Atkinson, 21, who were last seen alive on August 22, 1990. Their bodies were discovered in a secluded area near Houston's affluent Westheimer Road. Cheryl was found with her throat slashed and her hands tied with a rope, while Andy was shot in the head and his body discovered a short distance away. Both were partially clothed, and Cheryl's socks were notably missing. In the following months and years, similar cases emerged, linking the murders through the eerie presence or absence of socks. Another victim, Jennifer Chouette, survived a brutal attack in August 1990. She was abducted from her bedroom, sexually assaulted, and left for dead in a field. Miraculously, she survived and later provided crucial descriptions that helped in the investigation. Although her attack was not definitively linked to the sock murders, it showed a chilling similarity in modus operandi. In 1991, the bodies of Laurie Tremblay, a 15-year-old high school student, and Donna Prudhomme, 34, were discovered in a wooded area near Houston. Both women had been murdered under similar circumstances, with their bodies found with peculiar attention to their socks. Despite the connections between these cases, the investigation struggled to find concrete leads. The Houston Police Department and the FBI conducted extensive inquiries, yet the lack of substantial evidence and the killer's ability to evade capture left the cases unsolved. Various suspects were considered, including known serial offenders operating in the area at the time, but no definitive links were established. The sock murders drew significant media attention, with the unique and grisly details capturing public interest and fear. Numerous theories emerged, ranging from the idea of a single serial killer to the possibility of multiple perpetrators using the same macabre signature. The Houston community was left on edge, fearing the unknown assailant who managed to stay one step ahead of the law. In recent years, advances in forensic science and DNA technology have renewed hope for solving the sock murders. Cold case investigators continue to review evidence, hoping that modern techniques might uncover new leads or match DNA profiles to known offenders. The enduring mystery of the sock murders remains a painful chapter in Houston's history, with the families of the victims still seeking justice and closure. The sock murders underscore the challenges of solving complex and seemingly random violent crimes. The distinctive detail of the socks serves as a grim reminder of the killer's presence and the unresolved nature of these heinous acts. As investigators persist in their efforts, the hope remains that one day the person or persons responsible will be brought to justice, and the long-standing questions surrounding the sock murders will finally be answered. Sam Septic Tank. The Sam Septic Tank case, often referred to as the boy in the septic tank, is a haunting and tragic mystery that emerged in Tilden, Texas in 1961. The case involves the disappearance and subsequent discovery of the remains of 7-year-old Samuel Rayner, known as Sam, in a septic tank. This case has puzzled investigators in the local community for decades, leaving many questions unanswered about how the young boy ended up in such a grim situation. Samuel Rayner was last seen playing near his home on a warm summer day. When he failed to return home, a massive search effort was launched, involving the local police, community members, and even neighboring towns. Despite extensive searches in the surrounding areas, no trace of the boy was found for several weeks, leaving his family and the community in a state of anxiety and despair. The break in the case came when a neighbor reported a foul odor coming from a septic tank on their property. Upon investigation, authorities made the gruesome discovery of Samuel's body inside the tank. The initial shock and horror were compounded by the mysterious circumstances surrounding his death. The tank was located a significant distance from Samuel's home, raising questions about how he ended up there and whether foul play was involved. Autopsy results indicated that Samuel had died from drowning, but the exact events leading to his death remained unclear. The septic tank was secured and covered, making it unlikely that Samuel had accidentally fallen in. This led investigators to consider the possibility of foul play, suspecting that someone might have placed the boy in the tank deliberately. Despite extensive investigations, including interviews with neighbors, friends, and family members, no solid leads emerged. The lack of witnesses and physical evidence hampered the investigation, and the case eventually went cold. Over the years, several theories have been proposed, ranging from accidental death to murder, but none have provided a definitive explanation for the boy's tragic fate. The Sam Septic Tank case remains a deeply unsettling mystery in the annals of Texas crime history. The community of Tilden continues to be haunted by the unanswered questions surrounding Samuel's death. The case has occasionally resurfaced in public consciousness, especially when advancements in forensic technology have led to renewed interest in cold cases. However, despite these efforts, the mystery of how Samuel Rayner ended up in the septic tank and who might be responsible remains unsolved. The enduring mystery of the Sam Septic Tank case serves as a somber reminder of the pain and anguish experienced by the families of missing and murdered children. The Rayner family, along with the community of Tilden, holds on to the hope that one day new evidence or a breakthrough in forensic science will shed light on what happened to their beloved Samuel, bringing justice and closure to a case that has remained in the shadows for far too long. Father Day shooting. The Father's Day shooting, a tragic and senseless act of violence, occurred on June 20th, 1999, in the heart of Queens, New York City. This incident, which claimed the lives of 5 people, took place in the confines of a Wendy's fast food restaurant and has left an indelible mark on the community and the families of the victims. On that fateful day, two men, John B. Taylor and Craig Godineau, entered the Wendy's restaurant on Main Street in the Flushing neighborhood of Queens. Their motive was robbery. Taylor, a former employee of the restaurant, was familiar with the layout and operations, which likely emboldened their actions. After coercing the 7 employees present into the basement, the perpetrators bound and gagged them. In an act of cold-blooded brutality, Taylor and Godineau proceeded to shoot all 7 employees in the head, execution style. 5 of the victims, Anita Smith, Ali Akel, Jean Auguste, Raymond Najjar, and Jeremy Melee, succumbed to their injuries. Miraculously, 2 employees, Shazad Choudhury and Robert Sanchez, survived despite their severe injuries and went on to provide crucial testimony that helped bring the perpetrators to justice. The investigation into the Father's Day shooting was swift and intensive. Law enforcement officials, shocked by the sheer brutality of the crime, worked tirelessly to apprehend those responsible. The surviving witnesses, Choudhury and Sanchez, provided detailed descriptions of the assailants, which, combined with other evidence, led to the arrest of John B. Taylor and Craig Godineau shortly after the incident. In the subsequent trial, the horrific details of the crime were laid bare, and both men were convicted. John B. Taylor, considered the mastermind and principal assailant, was sentenced to death, though his sentence was later commuted to life imprisonment without parole after New York's death penalty statute was declared unconstitutional. Craig Godineau, who was found to be mentally impaired, received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The Father's Day shooting remains one of the most harrowing crimes in New York City's history. The senseless loss of life and the sheer brutality of the act shocked the nation and highlighted the devastating impact of violent crime on communities. The families of the victims continue to grieve their loss, and the survivors live with the scars of that horrific day. The incident also spurred discussions about workplace safety and the measures needed to protect employees from such acts of violence. It stands as a grim reminder of the vulnerability of everyday places to unimaginable acts of brutality, underscoring the importance of vigilance and the ongoing efforts to ensure justice for the victims and their families. Proctor Valley Road, Jane Doe. The Proctor Valley Road, Jane Doe is an unsolved case involving the discovery of an unidentified young woman found murdered near Proctor Valley Road in Chula Vista, California. This case has puzzled investigators and haunted the local community for decades as they strive to uncover the identity of the victim and the circumstances surrounding her death. On February 14, 1971, a motorist driving along Proctor Valley Road stumbled upon the partially clothed body of a young woman. The victim was estimated to be between 18 and 25 years old, with long brown hair and hazel eyes. She was approximately 5 feet 3 inches tall and weighed around 110 pounds. The cause of death was determined to be blunt force trauma to the head, and she had been deceased for a few days before her body was discovered. And despite extensive efforts by law enforcement, the young woman could not be identified. She had no identification on her, and no missing persons reports matched her description. Her fingerprints and dental records were also checked against databases, but no matches were found. Investigators released sketches and descriptions of the Jane Doe to the public, hoping someone might recognize her, but to no avail. The case garnered significant media attention and sparked numerous theories about who the Proctor Valley Road Jane Doe might have been. Some speculated she could have been a hitchhiker or a runaway, while others suggested she might have been a victim of foul play from someone she knew. However, without any concrete leads or evidence, the case eventually went cold. Over the years, advances in forensic technology have offered new hope for solving the mystery. In recent years, efforts have been made to extract DNA from the remains in the hope of finding a match in modern databases. Investigators have also used forensic genealogy, a method that has been successful in identifying other long unidentified victims and perpetrators. Despite these efforts, the Proctor Valley Road Jane Doe's identity remains unknown. The case continues to be an open investigation, with law enforcement and amateur sleuths alike hoping for a breakthrough. The Proctor Valley Road Jane Doe's story is a poignant reminder of the countless unidentified victims whose cases remain unsolved, and the importance of continuing to seek justice for them. The community's hope is that one day the Proctor Valley Road Jane Doe will be identified, her story will be told, and her killer will be brought to justice. Valentine's Day Massacre. The Valentine's Day Massacre, also known as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, is one of the most infamous events in American organized crime history. It occurred on February 14th, 1929, in Chicago, Illinois, and marked a significant escalation in the violent gang wars of the Prohibition era. On that fateful day, 7 members and associates of Chicago's North Side gang were lined up against a wall inside a garage at 2122 North Clark Street. They were then ruthlessly gunned down by 4 assailants, 2 of whom were dressed as police officers. The victims included 5 members of the North Side gang, led by George Bugs Moran, and 2 associates who happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. The massacre was a culmination of the intense rivalry between the North Side gang and the South Side gang, led by the notorious Al Capone. Both gangs were vying for control of Chicago's lucrative illegal alcohol trade during Prohibition. The attack was believed to be orchestrated by Capone in an effort to eliminate Moran, who had narrowly escaped the massacre himself. The brutality of the massacre shocked the nation and highlighted the extent of gang violence in Chicago. The killers used Thompson submachine guns, a weapon that became synonymous with gang warfare. The execution-style killings left the victims' bodies riddled with bullets, and the scene was one of utter carnage. Despite widespread speculation and numerous theories, the perpetrators of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre were never conclusively identified or brought to justice. Al Capone, who was widely suspected of being behind the attack, had a solid alibi, as he was in Florida at the time. However, many believe that Capone's enforcer, Jack Machine Gun McGurn, played a significant role in planning and executing the massacre. The massacre had a profound impact on public perception of organized crime and law enforcement's efforts to combat it. The gruesome nature of the killings and the apparent ease with which the assailants escaped led to increased pressure on authorities to crack down on gang activities. It also contributed to the eventual downfall of Al Capone, who was later convicted of tax evasion in 1931 and sentenced to prison. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre remains a symbol of the violent struggles between rival gangs during the Prohibition era. It has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and films, cementing its place in the annals of American crime history. The garage where the massacre took place was eventually demolished, but the legacy of that bloody Valentine's Day continues to intrigue and horrify those who study the dark side of the Roaring Twenties. Cheri Jo Bates, the murder of Cheri Jo Bates, is a chilling and unsolved case that has perplexed investigators for decades. On October 30th, 1966, Cheri Jo Bates, an 18-year-old student at Riverside City College in Riverside, California, was brutally murdered near the campus library. Cheri had spent the evening at the college library studying and left around closing time. Her car, a lime green Volkswagen Beetle, was found in the library parking lot with the ignition wiring pulled out, suggesting someone had tampered with it to prevent her from leaving. Investigators believe she was offered assistance by her killer, leading to her being attacked. Her body was discovered the next morning in an alleyway between 2 abandoned houses. She had been stabbed multiple times, her throat slashed, and there were signs of a fierce struggle. A man's Timex watch believed to have been torn off during the struggle, was found nearby. Despite this, no fingerprints or other significant evidence were recovered. In the weeks following the murder, anonymous letters were sent to the Riverside Police Department and the local newspaper, taunting investigators and claiming responsibility for the crime. These letters included details about the murder that were not released to the public, suggesting the writer was indeed the killer. The letters were signed with a symbol resembling a Z and contained cryptic messages. Over time, some investigators have speculated that Bates's murder might be connected to the Zodiac Killer, a notorious serial killer active in Northern California in the late 1960s and early 1970s. The Zodiac Killer is known for sending taunting letters to the press, similar to those sent after Bates's murder. However, no conclusive evidence has ever linked the two cases, and the Riverside Police Department has maintained that they believe the cases are not connected, despite numerous theories and suspects over the years, including an ex-boyfriend and other local men. No one has ever been charged in connection with Cheri Jo Bates' murder. Advances in forensic technology have led to renewed interest in the case, with the hope that DNA evidence might eventually identify the killer. The murder of Cheri Jo Bates remains an open and active investigation. Her case continues to haunt the Riverside community and serves as a stark reminder of the brutality of unsolved crimes. The quest for justice for Cheri Jo Bates endures, driven by the determination of investigators and the memory of a young life tragically cut short. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to get the updates as we post new videos weekly.